Milwaukee, Wisconsin, September 30th, 1859. Members of the Agricultural Society and citizens of Wisconsin. Agricultural fairs are becoming an institution of the country. They are useful in more ways than one. They bring us together, and thereby make us better acquainted, and better friends than we otherwise would be. From the first appearance of man upon the earth, down to very recent times, the words stranger and enemy were quite or almost synonymous. Long after civilized nations had defined robbery and murder as high crimes, and had affixed severe punishments to them, when practiced among and upon their own people respectively, it was deemed no offense, but even meritorious, to rob and murder and enslave strangers, whether as nations or as individuals. Even yet, this has not totally disappeared. The man of the highest moral cultivation, in spite of all which abstract principle can do, likes him who he does know much better than him who he does not know. To correct the evils, great and small, which spring from want of sympathy and from positive enmity among strangers as nations or as individuals, is one of the highest functions of civilization. To this end, our agricultural fairs contribute in no small degree. They make more pleasant and more strong and more durable the bond of social and political union among us. Again, if as Pope declares, happiness is our being's end and aim, our fairs contribute much to that end and aim as occasions of recreation, as holidays. Constituted as man is, he has positive need of occasional recreation, and whatever can give him this, associated with virtue and advantage, and free from vice and disadvantage, is a positive good. Such recreation our fairs afford. They are a present pleasure, to be followed by no pain as a consequence. They are a present pleasure, making the future more pleasant. But the chief use of agricultural fairs is to aid in improving the great calling of agriculture in all its departments and minute divisions, to make mutual exchange of agricultural discovery, information, and knowledge, so that, at the end, all may know everything which may have been known to but one, or to but a few at the beginning. To bring together especially all which is supposed to not be generally known, because of recent discovery or invention, and not only to bring together, and to impart all which has been accidentally discovered or invented upon ordinary motive, but, by exciting emulation, for premiums, and for the pride and honor of success, of triumph in some sort, to stimulate that discovery and invention into extraordinary activity. In this, these fairs are kindred to the patent clause in the Constitution of the United States, and to the department and practical system based upon that clause. One feature, I believe, of every fair is a regular address. The Agricultural Society of the young, prosperous, and soon-to-be great state of Wisconsin has done me the high honor of selecting me to make that address upon this occasion, an honor for which I make my profound and grateful acknowledgment. I presume I am not expected to employ the time assigned me in the mere flattery of the farmers as a class. My opinion of them is that, in proportion to numbers, they are neither better nor worse than any other class, and I believe there really are more attempts at flattering them than any other, the reason of which I cannot perceive, unless it be that they can cast more votes than any other. On reflection, I am not quite sure that there is not cause of suspicion against you in selecting me, in some sort a politician, and in no sort a farmer, to address you. But farmers being the most numerous class, it follows that their interest is the largest interest. It also follows that that interest is most worthy of all to be cherished and cultivated. That if there be inevitable conflict between that interest and any other, that other should yield. Again, I suppose it is not expected of me to impart to you much specific information on agriculture. You have no reason to believe, and do not believe, that I possess it. If that were what you seek in this address, any one of your own number or class would be more able to furnish it. You, perhaps, do expect me to give some general interest to the occasion, and to make some general suggestions on practical matters. I shall attempt nothing more, and in such suggestions by me, quite likely very little will be new to you, and a large part of the rest probably already known to be erroneous. My first suggestion is an inquiry as to the effect of greater thoroughness in the departments of agriculture than now prevails in the Northwest. Perhaps I might say in America. To speak entirely within bounds, it is known that 50 bushels of wheat, or 100 bushels of Indian corn can be produced from an acre. Less than a year ago, I saw it stated that a man, by extraordinary care and labor, had produced of wheat that was equal to 200 bushels from an acre. But take 50 of wheat, and 100 of corn, to be the possibility, and compare with it the actual crops of the country. Many years ago I saw it stated in the Patent Office report that 18 bushels was the average crop throughout the wheat-growing region of the United States. And this year, an intelligent farmer of Illinois assured me that he did not believe the land harvested in that state this season had yielded more than an average of 8 bushels to the acre. The brag crop I heard of in our vicinity was 2,000 bushels from 90 acres. Many crops were thrashed, producing no more than 3 bushels to the acre. Much was cut, and then abandoned as not worth threshing, and much was abandoned as not worth cutting. As to Indian corn, and indeed most other crops, the case has not been much better. For the last 4 years I do not believe the ground planted with corn in Illinois has produced an average of 20 bushels to the acre. It is true that heretofore we have had better crops, with no better cultivators, but I believe it is also true that the soil has never been pushed up to 1/2 of its capacity. What would be the effect upon the farming interest to push the soil up to something near its full capacity? Unquestionably, it will take more labor to produce 50 bushels from an acre than it will to produce 10 bushels from the same acre. But will it take more labor to produce 50 bushels from 1 acre than from 5? Unquestionably, thorough cultivation will require more labor to the acre. But will it require more to the bushel? If it should require just as much to the bushel, there are some probable and several certain advantages in favor of the thorough practice. It is probable that it would develop those unknown causes, or develop unknown cures for those causes, which of late years have cut down our crops below their former average. It is almost certain, I think, that in the deeper plowing, analysis of soils, experiments with manures and varieties of seeds, observance of seasons, and the like, these causes would be found. It is certain that thorough cultivation would spare half or more than half the cost of land, simply because the same product could be got from half, or from less than half the quantity of land. This proposition is self-evident, and can be made no plainer by repetitions or illustrations. The cost of land is a great item even in new countries, and constantly grows greater and greater, in comparison with other items, as the country grows older. It also would spare a large portion of the making and maintaining of enclosures. The same, whether these enclosures should be hedges, ditches, or fences. This again is a heavy item, heavy at first, and heavy in its continual demand for repairs. I remember once being greatly astonished by an apparently authentic exhibition of the proportion of the cost of enclosures bears to all the other expenses of the farmer. Though I cannot remember exactly what that proportion was, any farmer, if he will, can ascertain it in his own case for himself. Again, a great amount of locomotion is spared by thorough cultivation. Take 50 bushels of wheat, ready for the harvest, standing upon a single acre, and it can be harvested in any of the known ways with less than half the labor which would be required if it were spread over 5 acres. This would be true if cut by an old hand sickle, true to a greater extent if by the scythe and cradle, and to a still greater extent if by the machines now in use. These machines are chiefly valuable as a means of substituting animal power for the power of men in this branch of farm work. In the highest degree of perfection yet reached in applying the horsepower to harvesting, fully 9/10 of the power is expended by the animal in carrying himself and dragging the machine over the field, leaving certainly not more than 1/10 to be applied directly to the only end of the whole operation, the gathering in the grain and clipping of the straw. When grain is very thin on the ground, it is always more or less intermingled with weeds, chests, and the like, and a large part of the power is expended in cutting these. It is plain that when the crop is very thick upon the ground, the larger proportion of the power is directly applied to gathering in and cutting it, and the smaller, to that which is totally useless as an end. And what I have said of harvesting is true, in a greater or less degree of mowing, plowing, gathering in of crops generally, and indeed, of almost all farm work. The effect of thorough cultivation upon the farmer's own mind, and in reaction through his mind, back upon his business, is perhaps quite equal to any other of its effects. Every man is proud of what he does well, and no man is proud of what he does not do well. With the former, his heart is in his work, and he will do twice as much of it with less fatigue. The latter performs a little imperfectly, looks at it in disgust, turns from it, and imagines himself exceedingly tired. The little he has done comes to nothing for want of finishing. The man who produces a good full crop will scarcely ever let any part of it go to waste. He will keep up the enclosure about it, and allow neither man nor beast to trespass upon it. He will gather it in due season and store it in perfect security. Thus he labors with satisfaction, and saves himself the whole fruit of his labor. The other, starting with no purpose for a full crop, labors less, and with less satisfaction, allows his fences to fall, and cattle to trespass, gathers not in due season or not at all. Thus the labor he has performed is wasted away, little by little, till in the end he derives scarcely anything from it. The ambition for broad acres leads to poor farming. Even with men of energy, I scarcely ever knew a mammoth farm to sustain itself, much less to return a profit upon the outlay. I have more than once known a man to spend a respectable fortune upon one, fail and leave it, and then some man of more modest aims get a small fraction of the ground and make a good living on it. Mammoth farms are like tools or weapons which are too heavy to be handled. Ere long they are thrown aside, and at a great loss. The successful application of steam power to farm work is a desideratum, especially a steam plow. It is not enough that a machine operated by steam will really plow. To be successful, it must, all things considered, plow better than can be done with animal power. It must do all the work as well and cheaper, or more rapidly, so as to get through more perfectly in season, or in some way afford an advantage over plowing with animals, else it has no success. I have never seen a machine intended for a steam plow. Much praise and admiration are bestowed upon some of them, and they may be, for aught I know, already successful. But I have not perceived the demonstration of it. I have thought a good deal in an abstract way about a steam plow. That one which shall be so contrived as to apply the larger proportion of its power to the cutting and turning of the soil, and the smallest to the moving itself over the field, will be the best one. A very small stationary engine would draw a large gang of plows through the ground from a short distance to itself. But when it is not stationary, but has to move along like a horse, dragging the plows after it, it must have additional power to carry itself, and the difficulty grows by what is intended to overcome it. For what adds power also adds size and weight to the machine, thus increasing again the demand for power. Suppose you should construct a machine so as to cut a succession of short furrows, say a rod in length, transversely to the course the machine is locomoting, something like a shuttle in weaving. In such case the whole machine would move north only the width of the furrow, while in length the furrow would be a rod from east to west. In such case, a very large proportion of the power would be applied to the actual plowing. But in this, too, there would be a difficulty, which would be the getting of the plow into and out of the ground at the ends of all these short furrows. I believe, however, ingenious men will, if they have not already, overcome the difficulty I have suggested. But there is still another, about which I am less sanguine. It is the supply of fuel, and especially of water to make steam. Such supply is clearly practicable, but can the expense of it be borne? Steamboats live upon the water and find their fuel at stated places. Steam mills and other stationary steam machinery have their stationary supplies of fuel and water. Railroad locomotives have their regular wood and water station. But the steam plow is less fortunate. It does not live upon the water, and if it be once at a water station, it will work away from it, and when it gets away cannot return, without leaving its work, at a great expense of its time and strength.